Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Goodness again. I had such a great response to the daikon radishes little instructable there. I decided I'd do another one for you, as some of you requested, to explain how to make sauerkraut. Sauerkraut making is still a really easy process, but it has a few more steps than the pickled vegetables. And as you can see, my kitchen's behind me. I'm actually working at the dining table because it can just get a little bit messier. Okay everyone, so here's my spray-free cabbage which I got from the farmers markets yesterday. I'm going to start by peeling off the damaged, bruised outer leaves and they'll go in the compost. So here we are, we've got a cabbage that looks a bit prettier and less bug-eaten. I'm going to take a couple of leaves off and set them aside for later. So now I'm weighing the cabbage and this one's huge, 2.5 kilos. Which means that I'm going to measure out 25 grams of sea salt into a little dish, which I've got here. So the next thing I've done is I've cut the cabbage into quarters and I'm going to cut the cores out of each quarter. This is actually a really good example of a sauerkraut worthy cabbage because it's packed with leaves. It's quite a hard, big cabbage. So I'm about to start chopping up the cabbage and I like to work a quarter at a time just to make it manageable. I chop my cabbage quite finely because my dad is a fussy Dutchman and I like to do it to his standards. Unfortunately I can't hold the camera while I'm chopping with a big sharp knife, so I'll show you what it looks like in a second. Right, so I've got a large bowl with a quarter of a cabbage finely chopped in there. And then now I'm going to take about a quarter of that salt that we set aside earlier and sprinkle it on the cabbage. Okay, so now we need to scrunch and smush the cabbage leaves to draw all the liquid out of the leaves, which will become the brine that the cabbage ferments in. I've just been doing this for a few seconds and already I can start to feel the moisture. The cabbage is starting to get softer and I can feel the liquid on my hands. Fast forward a few minutes and this is soft enough and wet, like there's enough liquid in there now to start packing it into my fermenting kit. So this is my 2 litre fermenting kit which I use for sauerkraut because it basically holds 1 cabbage worth of sauerkraut in it. So I'll open it up and start packing the sauerkraut inside. Before we do, I like to sprinkle some mustard seeds on my cabbage. And I also like putting juniper berries in, but I don't have any today, so this will be a berry-free kraut. I usually use about 4 juniper berries per quarter of cabbage. So I put my quarter cabbage in the jar, and now I'm going to start squeezing the cabbage right down so that the brine should hopefully cover that much of the cabbage. So that's basically it. All you got to do is repeat the same process for the other 3 pieces of cabbage. If you didn't get much juice out of your cabbage and you don't have enough brine, don't stress too much because you can actually just make a bit more brine to top it up at the end. So I've done 3/4 of the cabbage now and I'm going to stop here because it's really full. And this was one juicy cabbage, so I've got enough brine as it is. I compacted the cabbage with my fist as I went. To get any air bubbles out and to get as much brine out of the cabbage as possible. So remember the cabbage leaves that we set aside earlier, I've put them in at the top there just to hold any floaties down. And now I'll put the glass weights on top just for good measure and we can seal it up. So I'll fill the airlock with water now and then set this aside in a cool, dark place for 10 weeks. So now your sauerkraut's ready, you can leave it out on the bench for a few days just to get the fermentation process started, although keep it out of the sunlight. But then make sure you do move it to a cool, dark place to finish the fermentation. I did have one batch that ended up a little bit slimy. I figured that was because it was just a bit too warm where I had it. So think cellar or basement type cool is ideal for doing your sauerkraut. So every now and then do check the airlock and make sure there's enough water in there to keep the seal. Also, don't overfill your sauerkraut vessel. Just be aware that the sauerkraut expands while it's fermenting, so it can overflow. So the sauerkraut is fermented after about 6 weeks, but I like to leave mine for 10 because by then it's really sour and there's no salty taste at all, which is how I like it. If you're not sure how long to leave it, you can just open your jar after 6 weeks and use a sterilised utensil to taste a little bit of it. If it's not sour enough or tasty enough for your liking, then you just seal it up again and leave it for a bit longer. When your sauerkraut's ready, you can put it in an airtight container and keep it in the fridge, and it should be good for up to a year. So I really hope that this little Instructable has helped some of you, and if you've still got questions, feel free to message me and I'll do my best to help you.